Hello, everyone. It's indeed good to be back at the DevOps Canada Summit 2022. This year, it's almost 3 years in a row I've been participating in this summit, and I'm really excited to be talking to you all today on a very exciting topic. To begin with, we have seen a lot of evolution, especially on the last couple of years, especially on the operations side. Over the last decade, we have seen a lot of new processes, new terminologies, new tools coming up every year. In the last couple of years, what we have seen, and that is evident in almost all the latest surveys and reports, that predominantly post COVID, we have seen that people have started somehow believing in how ops is to be done the correct way. The systems, typically pre-COVID, everything in ops was more about human acceptance and human validation. So there were a lot of manual gatekeepers and checkpoints intentionally kept just to be double assured of how things are running day in, day out. What we have seen over time, and that's during COVID and post the COVID era, that there is a tectonic shift in the way technology is seen now versus how it was seen or perceived a couple of years before. So we are in a place where we think of designing applications and redesigning the way we do operations in a much better way. Now, going with the latest trends, what I can tell you is we are emerging, especially in the operations space. But where exactly are we going? That's the question we all are open with, but with multiple answers. So that is a vague area which I wanted to explore with you all today. So what I'm going to talk to you today on my subject, emerging topics, what, where, and how we are going. So basically, it's on the where we are leading to. It's all basis trends and the latest market surveys that I've witnessed myself and participated in curating a few. Who am I? I'm Santanoo Bhattacharjee. I'm one of the DevOps practitioners across the technology space. I've been associated with the operations industry for close to 15 years plus now. I'm a DevOps Institute ambassador and a CD Foundation ambassador as well. I lead the DevOps India chapter, and I'm one of the track leaders for this summit. So I'm very much excited to present such a topic on this summit to you all today. I think except me not talking about ops on my day-in, day-out lifestyle, I enjoy reading a lot about the technology history, how things are evolving, how things were before me, how things are with me, and how things could be after me in the technology space. So that's what I do throughout the days of every week that I operate in. And coming back to the topic, let's explore this. To begin with, let's quickly have a look on the journey of this transformation. So we all know that DevOps, the word or the culture or the tool, whatever we used to call it before, came up with certain expectations in the market. How are we adopting to technologies? Is it faster or is it convenience of how leadership thinks? How do we build and operate? How are our frequency of releases? This was one of the main reasons I think this got accelerated. How is our time to market ratio? Things about the lead time. So how were fixes identified versus how were fixes delivered? The time gap, the delta between was one of the key reasons as well. And a lot of other factors. So this whole process change was coined with a lot of expectations. Surprisingly, I'll say this all expectations were valid because over the last decade, we have seen technology accelerating pace in a phenomenal way. Development methodologies are changing. The way systems were designed and systems were curated, as well as the way customers used to use the systems, have changed a lot in the last 10 to 15 years. So we needed a culture, we needed a process which could adapt to it. which could rely on what was needed to make it run the way it is supposed to. So it was very evident over the couple of years of DevOps existence that it has become an indispensable software development process. It also has given assurance and a lot of, I'll say, client as well as leadership satisfaction in the way it makes our applications and systems visible for continuous innovation. So it's quite evident that the existence of DevOps is here and it has done good for the entire humanity of technology space. Now, the core things that we expected out of it was the fastest software delivery. Is that better before when we had it versus what we have right now? Of course it is. Is the security and quality factor of our release improving, or is it what, to an extent, okayish how it was going before? Obviously, we have seen a tremendous growth in the improvement of how quality and security was done earlier versus now. And that results to the Nirvana question that we have. Had it given us a heavy customer satisfaction in terms of what was expected of the technology aligned with this process or not? Of course it has. So if you now summarize the effectiveness of this journey and people who have gone through the transformation over the years, we see that the software development processes, and this is a score I've forked from a few of the state report surveys. So what I've seen there is more than 60% of the respondents have qualified that they have seen improved software development process after adopting to DevOps principles. Recovery from failures, of course, because now the systems are more transparent, they are more visible, and they have seen tremendous benefit in faster identification of bottlenecks, quicker resolution time, and less downtime for any outages. So that has got a tremendous upvote, almost more than 90% of it. We have also seen that our DevOps teams, or so-called the ops teams that we had, right now are more inculcated with the whole team. They are more absorbed and they have 50% more time available in terms of their daily bandwidth to invest and grow the systems rather than being choked with the traditional outages and the issues that they had day in, day out. In terms of opening the gates for future, we have seen that the adoption of cutting-edge AI-driven processes, ML-driven systems, they are far more open to adopting such a system because DevOps implementation has made a cultural shift on how people do development and how people run applications. So now they are more open to such things. Now, we have seen a meme across the internet, I think, since ages, that when DevOps came, most of the leaders are talking about automate everything that you see on the hand. To me, to an extent, that's no longer a meme. It's reality. It's what we are trying to do today versus a timeline of 10, 15 years. Right now, what we see DevOps is heavily backed with super automation that we have done. But even though the journey on a very generic level has been successful to all of us, everybody in technology industry has, to an extent, used it, incorporated this into their organization, and they have fundamentally changed the way they were doing development and operations versus how they were doing it before. But still, are we good to catalog such a shift on a generic basis? Or is there a specific focus that I can give? So what I see from a report that I've recently reviewed for the purpose of understanding how DevOps has changed in the last couple of years. The State of DevOps report by Puppet in 2021. What we have seen, there's a very clear demarcation of how organizations pooled into the medium category, the high category, and the low category. How they have seen improvement year on year since 2018 till 2021. So what we have seen here in this report that since 2018, after almost all the top 100 to 500 Fortune companies have proved that this is helping them. And this DevOps process and the cultural change that they have incorporated in their organization has helped them grow. Almost every organization, it has become a ubiquitous term now. So everybody's using it, and everybody's using it to an extent that they feel it is correct. On certain evaluations of few questionnaires, what we have seen is that even though the lower segment has slowly evolutionarily reduced, but we do see an increase in people not moving from lower to the middle segment very fast and moving to a high performing organization who is using DevOps. They are somehow stuck in between. And because of it, it's an area which is a bit confusing to them as well. How can we move from the mid space to the high end space? How can we call ourselves and our implementation of a DevOps culture and the processes it has brought within that has helped us becoming a high performing organization? Why are we still stuck in middle? What we see, if we summarize the basic values that this cultural change or this process change or this technology change, so whatever we call it in DevOps, can be pooled broadly into 5 categories. And of these 5 categories, the levers which typically decide where are you staying, are you on the high space or are you on the middle space or you're still in the lower space. So the ones which are important are, number 1, resistant to change. So when I talk about resistance to change, we know for organizations who are highly successful in DevOps, the implementation flow or more about the evolution flow is only benefited and realized if it is from top down. The enablement of such is happening from the top down, from the top management to everybody using it in their space. If there is a resistance in incorporating such a change in any of these layers, it pulls you down from where you want to go versus where you are. Lack of automation. We understand this is a very complicated buzzword when everybody in this industry is talking about automation. But what are we automating? How are we qualifying automation backlogs? Do we understand if that automation is going to help us to an extent which actually is worthy of investing time? Unclear goals. It again resonates on the same factor. To a lot of us, to a lot of people, any cultural change, it's always a problem when the goal is not properly diluted and made clear to everybody participating in such a change. If the goals are very narrowly classified and they are very restrictively demoed, everybody will not buy how exactly you use things. So the goals have to be publicly very clear of what you want to achieve of this whole implementation. It's not a silo division which is to be benefited with such a cultural transformation. It is the entire organization which relies on how this transformation should benefit them as a whole. 2 more components which typically comes in every layer: legacy architecture, the existence of legacy applications and the systems that we have. And it's ubiquitous again, the shortage of required skills. This is a never-ending problem, and this is something we can try to backfill with more and more upscaling and more new initiatives to scale people and align with what exactly is needed from them in the market. But seeing these top 5 categories, what I was interested to explore more about what is distinguishing the high-performing organizations and what is making everybody else either stay in the mid segment or close to the high segment, but not in the high segment. So the organizations which are in the high segment, they have very clearly made this distinction that they are confined to achieve 100% excellence in DevOps just with these 2 barriers. They are still trying to mitigate their systems of legacy and break down those legacy architecture to make it far more tuned for the future. And they, to an extent, still are backfilling their desired skills, roles, and capabilities. But except these two pillars, they are very much rock solid and clear on the other three categories, which brings us down to the first layer of companies who have invested heavily, but still they are stuck on the mid segment are broadly because they have not properly thought of these three spaces. They're still, they've got people who have not made the goals clear to the common public, and they have not made it very open to accept that this change is for good and this change is here to stay. The sooner they accept it, the faster they will be able to transform and get what exactly they want out of this transformation. And of course, they are not still very clear to what automation is to be done. So companies who are confined in the mid segment and they find it very difficult to move to the high performing segment of people or organizations who have adopted DevOps are now to reevaluate these 5 blocks and see what is blocking them. If there is a clear demarcation that I can give you, I'll say if you're only stuck in the mid segment because you cannot break it down, your architecture, the legacy component of the application, and you cannot properly fulfill the desired skills, this will never make you stay in the mid segment. You are almost entering the high segment, you're just stuck there. But in case you are stuck with the top three, resistance to change, lack of automation, and unclear goals, which somehow inherently you will not absorb, I'll propose that you revisit your strategy and you see why are you still stuck in the mid segment and which of these pillars needs to be immediately addressed to. As I've just shared a note that in the light of how transformation is happening with the fourth industrial revolution, DevOps was and remains one of the key critical skills, which is always in high demand. And because it's not just tools, not just processes, not just simple technology element, it's a culture. It is how things are working. It is how things will work in the future. If you do not accept this in the sense of how it is to be accepted, moving to a high performing organization just by just forking their principles, by just forking the way they do it, will not do justice to your business deliverables. You have to fit in, you have to customize these 5 blocks basis how you have been doing things versus how you want to do things for the future. So this exciting observation was very much insightful for me in order to understand what distinguishes a high-performing organization versus a mid-performing organization in terms of adopting such a process. Now let's talk about the future. So we understand that to an extent we have gone to an era, or we've come to an era where we have got this process implemented. We have got a culture of DevOps established for all the divisions, and now we are happily leveraging the power of it. But where do we go from here? This is a very wonderful element because in order to discuss it, there are multiple open-ended forums, there are multiple open-ended, I'll say, categories we can talk about. But broadly, if I categorize the top 6 elements of where we can go in the next 5 to 10 years and how much can we leverage it in terms of already knowing it, are these categories. The categories are, as you see, first, the entire application development lifecycle and the entire application development process now is different versus how it was in the past. Now we leverage more and more lighter applications. We think of building applications which loads fast, which runs fast, and how we design it also matters. So it's all microservice driven. Our components are not heavy anymore. So it's all API integratable components. So how are we using applications? We never see the background, but our applications are always talking to each other through multiple APIs. So the next way of how development is done is gonna change, and it's gonna be better if we factor in this principle of how development is happening now. Every leading industry is focusing more about microservices driven design and how their architectures are leading it. And moving from there, the second element is multi-cloud. So how do we see cloud enabling us? So we all know that to a major extent, we are leveraging cloud in our daily business. We have got multiple public clouds. We have got a lot of self-hosted applications, which we call as a private cloud. How does it help? It helps us in making our applications more available and flexible. So the future of how platforms will be more on the multi-cloud because of certain factors. Number one, we prefer more portable applications, how our applications can be easily ported from one set to other without much of a vendor lock-in. Second, the spread of multi-cloud gives you an assurance that you can use the best of capabilities for every offering that you are getting. So it's not limited to a single CSP anymore. You can use the best of breed and then make the entire goal that you have of using a platform is making your application perform the best. And in order to do that, you cannot rely on, or you should not rely on a single hosted set. You have to count on the best of capabilities that each set has to give, and in such a way that everything connects properly and works seamlessly fine. The third point is security. How exactly a security is going to help you in terms of running for the future. When we talk about breaking our applications and making it more lightweight, we talk about exposing a lot of applications because it's all API economy. It's all how APIs are talking and APIs are making your applications feel connected. When there are so many open points in an application design and there are so many open exposure surfaces in the architecture, you have to bake in security. You cannot just think security as one of the components that you have to worry about. It has to be inherently designed of how you design those capabilities. So that's the reason you see security was never appended before dev, or it was appended after ops, or maybe coined before devs. It's between this. So how security is to be baked in your whole design principle of the application, as well as how your platforms are built, how you're building your networks ideas, how you are building your firewalls, how you're developing your CDNs, how you're maintaining it, how exactly is your housekeeping defined. It's all gonna be a bake-in process for the future. I'll not touch much on the application systems. This is also one of the evident area that you have seen. Over the last couple of years, we have seen the model of low-code applications or no-code applications has gained a lot of attention. People now, to an extent, have seen the benefit of few applications or few COTS product where they've seen that visually appealing designer can design complicated applications without writing too much of a code or without even knowing too much of a code. So these applications where you can define capabilities without too much of a complicated coding, they are taking up the market space. And this is also one of the key areas which DevOps is enabling and making it a part of the homogeneous ecosystem of how we leverage it. Computing technologies, we are all aware of it, that things in this computing space have drastically redefined itself year after year. Things like edge computings, serverless, all the jargons that we hear on the terminology, containerization, the entire set of how computing was done a decade before versus how it is done now is different. So the terms are different. Maybe people who come from a space where I come from, era before 2005, we have seen the whole definitions are getting changed now. So how I used to see things in this computing space is not exactly how this generation of people will see. So the workflows, the configurations, the ops modules, everything is far more faster and far more seamless versus how it used to be. So this is one of the main, I'll say, backgrounds of how DevOps has enabled, DevOps has transformed the computing life cycle and how platforms are changing versus how they were. And to a summary, I'll say AI has changed the game. So now, because we have multiple sets of applications, we have multiple sets of platforms, it's a heterogeneous mix and it's far more complex to manage. So introducing a capability of AI ops and machine learning readability as a capability. So these I'll say offerings have given us room to breathe, because the more applications and more complexities in integrations we introduce, the more noises it generates in terms of error ratios and in terms of, I'll say, multiple scenarios are arising every second. How do we investigate and troubleshoot such a thing? Solutions of AI and ML helps us in narrowing down to the point which actually needs to be looked into, rather than just deep diving something which doesn't make sense at the end. So to a summary, I'll say these are the top 6 pillars of how DevOps will emerge and where DevOps will help us in the future. How things will be different in these spaces are very much interesting to be explored. Now, the one interesting fact that I'll say which matters when we compare with companies who are performing excellent versus companies who are still trying to figure out what is the secret sauce is successful companies treat the entire platform as a product themselves. People who have actually excelled the game of how DevOps had come to existence and how they can make the best use of DevOps and the power that it has got, have coined their platforms, their ecosystems of platforms itself as a product. When they treat it as a product, they build it as a product. And products built for that kind of a capability are designed to run to a power that it is supposed to deliver. In the end, I'll be very happy to say that, and this is something I'm just very confidently saying, that such new changes, such new powerful processes are no longer just something only for the unicorns to work on or unicorns to leverage. Now, everyday organizations are very happily accepting it and they have seen the power of it. So they have got the value of customer satisfaction and keeping aligned with technology space. They have started excellence in using it. They have gained the confidence that such things are here to stay, and they have changed the game of how they have done ops so far and how they are going to do ops for the future. So we will be excited and we will look forward to what's in store for the process of DevOps in the future. And I hope so will you. With that, I'm very much thankful to all of you to participate in this session today. I look forward to meeting you all. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. We can connect and we can talk about a lot of such exciting, exciting options and exciting scopes. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit as I'll do myself. Thank you.